Konnichiwa, Pat Tokuyama here, creator of All Day I Eat Like a Shark, where I share my Japanese cooking videos once a week showing you guys how to make Japanese food. If this is your first time here, consider subscribing for more videos like this one. Today what we're going to be doing is making a side dish with Renkon, which is also known as lotus root. If you haven't heard of lotus root before, it's the same thing that leads to and feeds a lotus flower. So this is the lotus root here that I have. It's not skinned. This one has been de-skinned. If you're new to lotus root, there's a couple things that you want to keep in mind. Once you peel it, you may notice that it's going to start to discolor. One of the things that you can do to prevent discoloration is to put it in water with a little bit of vinegar. So I usually do about a half teaspoon to 500 mils or 2 cups of water and let it soak for a few minutes. Alternatively, you can keep it wet. So this is still a little bit wet, and that's why you don't see any oxidation. But basically, if you let it dry out, it might turn a little bit brown or discolored. So depending on what you're using it for, if you're making sunamono, for example, or some other preparation where you want to preserve the nice off-white color, that may matter to you a little bit more. And so you can see it's turned a little bit brown. Usually if you have it freshly cut, it'll be a little bit more on the whiter side. So keep that in mind if you are new to cooking with lotus root, also known as Renkon in Japanese. So question of the day, have you ever cooked with kabocha, which is Japanese pumpkin, or Renkon? If you have, let me know in the comments below right now. Just hit yes or no. And if you haven't, let me know if you think you'll be trying this recipe. So before we get started, this is going to be a super easy recipe to put together. You really only need 3 ingredients. I have some balsamic vinegar here, about 2 tablespoons, about a 1/4 cup of ketchup, and some shiokoji. Shiokoji is the fermented rice seasoning, which has salt added to it, and it's very potent in terms of flavor enhancing components. So it's a great way to enhance the flavor of your vegetables, of your meat. You can use it for steak, you can use it for fish, vegetables like we're doing today. It has very many different uses, and it's very worth your while if you've never used it before to try it out. That's shiokoji for you. So what I have here, this is about 2 equal parts roughly of Renkon and kabocha. What we're going to do is we're going to saute it, give it a nice brown texture. We're just going to use some extra virgin olive oil today. And then for the kabocha, if you didn't know, you should never cut a raw pumpkin or squash. You should always soften it in the microwave. So I microwaved this for probably about 5 minutes on high power. That's why it's super soft. I took off the bottom and top middle pieces, so that's why it's been cored there. What we're going to do is we're going to cut this into slightly thin slices, maybe about a 1/4 inch thick, no thicker than that. And you have the option, actually I'm going to cut it in half after that. So we're just going to go ahead and slice this first. Nice and crunchy, right? It's one of my favorite aspects about eating this Renkon. It's nice and crunchy. Renkon chips are another great way to enjoy Renkon. You can put it in your curry, for example. You can put it in your soup. Surioroshi is one of my favorite Renkon dishes. It's basically where you have grated Renkon and some dashi stock. Simple. Put it in your salads. What ways have you used Renkon? Second question of the day. Let me know in the comments below if you've used Renkon for any kind of Japanese or even non-Japanese dishes. Many different uses. And because its flavor is super neutral, you can use it for all kinds of different things. So I'm just going to cut these in half. We're going to go ahead and throw these onto the saute pan. So we're going to let that start to brown just a little bit, and then for the kabocha, we're also going to cut this into about half. Cut this into half, and then we'll cut it into thin slices, just like we did with the Renkon. So since this is already cooked, we're not going to really need to cook it in the saute pan. We can just make sure that it's seasoned properly. Actually, this is really soft. We're not going to put it in until the Renkon is just about done. So depending on how cooked your kabocha is, if you cooked it a little bit more, for example, if you did it like 7 or 8 minutes, it might be cooked all the way through, and you just want to add the seasoning. We're just going to cut this into the same thickness, about a 1/4 inch thick. So we can also go ahead and put a little bit of cracked pepper on, and then as soon as the Renkon has browned a little bit, which it's starting to right now, we can go ahead and put on shiokoji, and then we'll put in the vinegar, the ketchup, and then the kabocha, and that'll essentially be it. Oh yeah, and special shout out to Max, one of my first Patreon supporters. He has sponsored this video, and one of the requests that he had was to make something with Renkon, which is what we're doing today. So thank you for that, Max, and I hope to see you continuing to support me in some of my future videos. So let me know what you think. All right, so we'll let that go for a little bit more, and then we can drop in some shiokoji. We're just going to use about a teaspoon's worth. And we can add in our ketchup and our balsamic vinegar. Make sure all of the liquid has been reduced, and then we will just about be done. Go ahead and plate this. Alright guys, so here it is. So this is my Renkon stir fry with some kabocha, a little bit of ketchup, and some balsamic and some shiokoji, and very delicious of course. This is a great way to add a side or accompany any sort of lunch or dinner, Japanese style of course, with some vegetables. Be a great way also to incorporate into your bento if you like to do bento, which is Japanese style boxed lunch. So hope you guys give this a try. And as I mentioned, thank you Max for being my first Patreon supporter and for sponsoring this video and helping me to bring more Japanese cooking videos to the world. And if you have not heard of Patreon before, check it out. There's a link in my profile if you want to learn more on how to support me and what that entails. So that's going to be it for this video. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. Other than that, I think I will see you in my next video. Chana, bye-bye. So why did I make this recipe? Because it reminds me of eating deri foods in Japan. So in Japan, deppa is short for department, chika is underground. If you go into a department store, the deppa chika, some of the things that they sell are things like this. If you've never been to deppa chika before, make sure to check it out on your next visit to Japan.